Many of my model truck projects are inspired by photos, and this model of a mid-1980s Ford LN Series tractor, which was operated by the Canadian carrier Kingsway, is a good example, being inspired by this photo of the real truck, taken by truck enthusiast Doug McKenzie, and originally posted on the website Hank's Truck Pictures. AMT's Ford Louisville delivery van kit was an ideal starting point, providing a single drive axle and rear suspension. The frame was shortened to a wheelbase of approximately 145 inches, based on proportions estimated from the photo, using the fuel tank and the battery box sizes as a general guide. The fifth wheel and mounts were taken from an AMT Ford C-Series kit, and the 6-spoke wheels are Resin aftermarket items. The kit-supplied engine was used, and the front axle was made steerable. With the basic frame and cab work in place, the real modeling fun could begin, which is adding the small details to replicate the truck shown in the photo. D-shaped fuel tanks used the kit's front halves for the round section, with the square portion built up from styrene sheet. After rough sanding the tank to shape, a 10th styrene sheet wrapper was installed, with the seam on the back where it would be hidden against the frame. Styrene sheet overlays were added to the ends, and the mounting hardware was built up using styrene strip and channel. Once installed, fuel lines were added, and air brake lines and bolt head detail was also added to the frame. The battery box is made from styrene sheet on brass tube mounting brackets. Fuel tank steps were made using styrene strip. Permanently installing the cab interior tub to the frame early in the assembly process makes it easier to add details to cab mounts and the air tanks on the underside of the cab. Many Canadian trucks have air dryers fitted, so a resin air dryer detail part was installed on the passenger side of the frame. On the firewall, wiper motor, air lines, and other details were built up using styrene strip and wire, following reference photos as a general guide. The front suspension received fastener details, U-bolts, and shock absorbers assembled from brass tube. The kit-supplied wedge brakes were replaced with S-cam style brakes using Italy front brake chambers taken from the parts box. Quarter fenders were also sourced from the parts box and were improved by replacing the cast-on detail with freestanding styrene rod, tube, and fastener castings. The kit engine was assembled stock and painted cat yellow to resemble a 3208. The kit's automatic transmission was also replaced using a manual transmission from the parts box. The Ford LN is one of AMT's early truck kit offerings and has a removable hood and fender assembly which is only set in place. For this model, hood hinges were created using brass strip and tube, and the temporary L-shaped brass wire pins in the photo were used so that the hood could be easily installed and removed as many times as required for test fitting during assembly. The cab section of the splash guards was made using styrene sheet and strip, again using reference photos of Ford LN trucks as a guide. I was able to photograph a similar truck at a repair shop, and another good source of photos for detailing purposes is for sale ads on truck and equipment auction sites. The air intake was modified to a later 1980s version, and a small piece of etched stainless steel mesh simulates the air filter element. An overflow bottle made from styrene strip was added to the radiator, and universal joints from the kit were installed in a section of aluminum tube to create a new drive shaft. The mud flaps were built up using 15 thou styrene sheet and strip, and the hangers were made using 1/32 square brass strip with shim brass mounting tabs soldered in place. The backup light lenses were painted white, and although this is not completely accurate, as backup light lenses are clear, it does provide a good visual contrast with the red taillight lenses. The underside of the hood has added details in the form of air intake ducting, splash guards, and sound deadening insulation, which was made with thin sections cut from a Scotch-Brite pad. The kit mirror parts are rather heavy, and these replaced with 30 thou styrene rod. The mirrors were built on a spare cab from the parts box, so they could be constructed in place, piece by piece, and painted with alclad chrome as a finished unit, and they were finally installed on the painted cab during final assembly. The parts box cab was also used to construct the exhaust stack and the mounting brackets, again making it possible to assemble the entire exhaust system in place, and then remove it in sections for painting. The muffler itself is built from styrene tube, around a section of aluminum tube which projects from each end. Fine copper wire simulates a flex pipe section, and the band clamps at the joints on the exhaust system are made with aluminum tube and styrene strip. These clamps hold the exhaust system sections together just like on a real truck. The heat shield on the exhaust stack was made from stainless steel mesh, while the cab interior was assembled mostly stock with freestanding brake knobs, window cranks, and door pulls added. The 10-speed shift lever is taken from Revell's snap kit version of the Peterbilt 359. The cab received a headliner made from scribed styrene sheet, and styrene strip and fishing line was used for the horn pull. One issue with AMT's Ford LN kits is the very shallow molding of hood emblems, latches, and door handles. For this model, emblems were cut from a spare parts kit, chromed with bare metal foil, and installed in place over the kit emblems. The hood latches were made using styrene strip and wire, and the door handles were removed entirely and replaced with freestanding door handles taken from a Lindbergh Dodge L700 kit. The engine received some light weathering, and the hood stops were fine thread with coiled craft wire simulating the springs. Molded on windshield wipers were removed and replaced with freestanding parts made from styrene strip. The dash fan was built up using laminated clear styrene discs. The horns are actually the stock kit part cleaned up and drilled out, and these actually build up into a fairly nice assembly, shown with the modified kit horns for comparison. On the back side of the cab, Resin air-glad hands and trailer plug were fitted to a coiled wire air lines and a light cord. The work light on the back of the cab was made from styrene tube with a headlight lens from the parts box. Finishing touch on this model is the Kingsway decals from decal supplier modeltruckin.com. The completed model was photographed outdoors on a winter day, set on a plywood board, positioned to blend the model in the foreground with a natural background. Thanks for watching, and I'll post another video in the near future showing a van trailer built to go with this tractor to complete the rig.